Greetings, mutie lovers. This is Uncanny, the mutant musings of Matt and Siz. It's the show where we discuss Marvel's Uncanny X-Men comic issue by issue, all the way from 1975's giant-size X-Men to the present day. My name is Matt. I write and draw Steamroller Man, a comedy superhero comic which you can read online for free at steamrollerman.com. And this is my co-host, Siz, publisher, promoter, and founder of Comics Studios Australia. You can find everything comics at comx.net.au. That's comics with no i.net.au. Siz, how's it going?
It's going well. It's going well. I got a new shirt.
I like it.
Magneto was right. I don't know if
it.
people will agree, but it is what it is.
The more X-Men comics I'm reading, the more I'm inclined to agree. Especially in light of what I learned about Professor X.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, makes you wonder sometimes. There's also the Cyclops was right. I've seen that shirt as well. That looks cool.
Oh, interesting.
But I haven't read that story, so I don't know if I'll get that shirt because I don't know what they're saying.
I don't know what they're saying. I mean,
right.
Yeah, well, I don't know what that's referring to either. That must be something more in more modern continuity.
Yeah, it's something he did in modern days, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Apparently he goes a little Magneto-ish. So
interesting. Okay, well, I guess we'll get there eventually.
We'll get there eventually.
In 10 years.
Oh, dear.
So what are we talking about today?
Oh, sorry?
What are we talking about today?
We're talking about issue 100. Woo!
Yeah, milestone.
Yeah, it is. It's huge. And it's the X-Men versus the X-Men. So, you can't get better than that.
No, this one's got one of those classic face-off covers where all the characters are like lined up, facing off against each other.
Yeah.
It looks very cool.
Yeah, it's great. And yeah, it is very classic. Whenever they've got someone versus someone, they're doing this. I love who they've got up against each person. It's some interesting choices.
Yep.
I think Wolverine and Iceman just got stuck together because they didn't match anyone.
They were the last ones picked for the team.
Yeah, they were the last ones. It's like everyone else sort of makes sense. And then it's like, oh, Wolverine and Iceman, that doesn't make a lot of sense. Yep. But yeah, it's a great cover though. And I'll just go through. This was actually published in August 1976. And you had Chris Claremont as the author. Dave Cockrum was the artist, and there's no mention of an inker. So I'm under the impression he also inked.
I believe you must be right.
Yes, and Bonnie W. did the colors. Annette K. They don't give full names for some reason in this one. Did the letters. And old Marv. This is actually, I don't know if it's his last book, but I looked up the next one, and he's not on it.
Oh, really?
Marv Wolfman is not the editor on the next one. So I don't know if that continues on. I didn't look past that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
interesting that like Annette K, the letterer, and Bonnie W, the colorist, they've been consistent for the last few issues.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
I think so. Yeah. I remember I think it's because of the last initial rather than a full name. I think that's what made it stick in my mind.
These guys.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Exactly.
I saw their names last issue. You don't need to see it this issue, but I remember it looked like they were running out of room, and that's maybe why they were running out of room, so they couldn't do whole names.
Maybe.
So what was the other thing about this one? Oh, it's Greater Love Hath No X-Men is the title of this one. Oh, I'm on the page for it. Yeah, cool.
This is interesting. Yeah, this is a really cool issue. Lots of action in this one.
Lots of action. And I love finding out where Stephen Lang started. Because I'm under the impression where you first meet him in the X-Men comics. I could be wrong. Because we didn't read before the new X-Men came along.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think this is his first appearance, but I don't know.
I'll have to look it up. I'll do that before the next show, actually.
Cool.
But I do like going back. I love his uniform, and that
Yeah.
it's called, what was it called? Oh, I forgot.
Project Armageddon.
It is Armageddon. Okay, that's right. I was like, is it Apocalypse or Armageddon? I couldn't remember which.
Project
Um,
Armageddon.
Armageddon. That's a crack up, and they all have that A on their uniform.
Yep.
That's
This
like you
page,
said last show. Sorry, that it's very henchman like. Yeah,
yes. Yes.
the
It's very much
typical.
like a 60s James Bond film.
Yeah,
Got
yeah,
all the henchmen in their uniforms and stuff. It's very cool. This
yeah.
page confused me at first because Stephen Lang is so small in the image and the X-Men are so big. And I was like, what's going on? Because it also is an interesting variation on the cover design, which is very similar in its layout. You've still got the X-Men kind of lined up against each other on this splash page, but it's almost from the reverse angle. So instead of Wolverine and Iceman being furthest away
Oh
from the
yeah,
camera, they're now closest to the camera. But you've still got Stephen Lang in kind of the same pose and position that Professor X was on the cover. And so going from the cover, then flipping to this, it's a bit jarring just
yeah. I
visually.
get what you mean.
And then I looked at it more closely and I was like, oh, hang on. He's watching a huge video screen.
Yeah, massive video screen.
Yeah. But yeah, visually it was a bit jarring. I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming that's intentional. It is very kind of an interesting way to do like the cover and then open up to the splash page, and it's a very similar kind of design.
Oh yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
interesting.
there's the splash page. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to
Oh,
bring it
nice.
up
Yeah,
on the screen so everyone can see it.
awesome.
There we go.
That looks great. Yeah, so tons of action on this awesome double splash page, double page splash image, I should say. Again, doing the same thing as he did last issue that we talked about, where you got the splash page immediately followed by a double page image. It's just great for impact, especially early in the issue. Lots of great action posing in this image. Funny thing here is we were talking at the end of last episode about the matchups between the characters. And Wolverine and Iceman were facing off as they were on the cover of this issue. And you can see that Iceman is attacking Wolverine in this image, but he's still only using a snowball.
Yes, snowball. That cracked me up when I saw this page.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't think Wolverine's going to really care about that.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
I just love that out of nowhere there's Havoc and Polaris.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the entire
they're in there too.
previous team, you know, like that the new X-Men replaced. So now they're all back facing off, which is really like it's a cool idea for a 100th issue to do, you know, like new versus old, especially in light of, you know, this is like a complete relaunch of the X-Men comic. And so, you know, it's interesting in sort of a meta textual way that like the old comic characters who have been sort of, you know, tossed off to the side almost are now coming back to kind of, you know, have a fight with the new characters.
They're very vicious.
Yeah, it's a cool theme for this milestone 100th issue, I thought.
Yeah, I agree.
Very
I just
fun.
love all through the fight. The new team is realizing how out for blood they are.
Right.
Even Nightcrawler says, "Look in their eyes. Look in their eyes. They're out for blood.
Yes.
Our blood.
They're out for blood, except for Iceman, who's just throwing snowballs.
It's just throwing snowballs. It's the best he can do.
That's the best he can do, exactly. So then on the next page, page 4, we've got interesting matchup here: Nightcrawler versus Beast. It's like the battle of the two acrobatic team members, which I thought was interesting. And Nightcrawler starts to notice something's not quite right here, because he says, like, wait, weren't you blue and furry?
Yeah.
Like, I saw you on the Avengers, which that's what in the current contemporary comics to this issue, Beast is a member of the Avengers, and he's in his blue furry kind of iteration. So Nightcrawler notices that, and he also notices that Cyclops' visor is different. To the Cyclops that he met or that he's known since Giant Size X-Men #1. So something's up. We don't know what yet, but something's up.
Nightcrawler's all over it.
He is.
Until he gets blasted.
Yeah. Great action poses in pretty much every panel of this page. Yeah. You've got really awesome posing. Great work by Dave Cockrum. Really nice figure drawing in evidence throughout this page.
It's really cool to know that he did the inks as well. So this is him on himself.
Yeah, it looks great. His inks are really, really, really nice. And then on the next page, we have a little bit more of Iceman versus Wolverine.
This is a little bit more, looks like a threat now rather than snowballs.
Right. Yeah, so Iceman's trying to freeze him. Wolverine seems to easily cut through the ice with no problem. And then Angel swoops in and picks Wolverine up and then throws him into Colossus. One thing I noticed in a lot of the X-Men battles so far, that's like a really common tactic, is one character being thrown into another, like using one character as a projectile and throwing it into another character. And then speaking of which,
this must be the first time it's done.
Yep.
I love that. I get to see the first time, because this is used so much in modern comics.
Absolutely.
They call it the fastball special, and they call it that the whole time. It's awesome.
Yep. The fastball special. So yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the first time that they've done the fastball special, which is Colossus throwing Wolverine as a projectile at whatever the enemy is. And that must have been something that got like really either good reaction from the fans, or Chris Claremont just really liked that gimmick, because that has now become like a typical fight move for Wolverine and Colossus.
Strong guy throws Wolverine.
Yeah. They're very cool. Really cool.
I've seen the one where She-Hulk throws him.
Oh, nice.
And it's a fastball special.
That's awesome.
Yeah. This one's cool.
Did a version of it in the movie, right? Didn't one of the X-Men movies do a version of that fastball special?
I think
except
they did,
Jackman is like huge.
Yeah.
So it doesn't quite work the same.
It doesn't look the same, yeah.
No.
This is cool. This is where you find out how full on Colossus is.
Yeah. And also how powerful Havoc is at the same time. Because Colossus is saying, like, to himself, he's thinking to himself, like, if I wasn't in my metal form, if I was just in my human flesh form, I would be burned to a crisp. Now, interestingly, the phrasing "burned to a crisp" suggests that Havoc's powers are heat-based.
Yeah, they are. Yep.
Okay.
They're like
just wondered.
They don't do it here, but in modern comics they actually describe it as some sort of like plasma energy. So it's very much hot, because I remember in I think it was when they were in the outback, he fired on this creature, and all that was left was a skeleton at the end and charred flesh.
Oh my God.
And the other people have gone, "What the hell, Havoc?" And he's gone, look at my powers. It's the best I can do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You've mentioned that before. I remember.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So yeah, because I know there's always like a fan kind of debate about Cyclops' powers
Yes.
as
Yes.
to
And
are they heat based or is it kinetic energy kind of concussive force
yeah.
based. So interesting. I wasn't sure which way Havoc's powers went, but yeah,
Oh,
that's a
okay.
good explanation that
Yeah.
you just gave.
Havoc's very much heat, as far as I know. Like it's some sort of raw energy type of thing. I can understand why there's that thing because I actually read a Cyclops scene where they're talking about the heat. I'm like, hang on, what?
Yeah,
So
I think
yeah.
it's actually it's mentioned in this issue
Oh, and
later
this
on.
issue, okay.
Yeah, I think this one or the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, there's one page where it's like, oh, we'll get to it.
We'll
We'll
get
get
to it.
to it. Won't talk about it now.
Yeah.
Um, just before we go to the next page, I just wanted to
Oh,
mention like the artwork.
oh yeah.
I just like the coloring on that first panel where it's just very minimal, but it makes it feel even brighter and
Yeah.
hotter,
It works
where
really
it's
well.
just white, black, and yellow coloring. Really well done, especially with the, because this wasn't like the modern computer coloring. This was back
Yeah.
with when they just had like the Dr. Martens inks, and
Hmm.
they only had like a certain palette of red, blue, yellow, or combinations of those in certain percentages to get all the colors that they could use on the page.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah. There was, it's primitive. It's because the paper that they used, because it used to be printed on newsprint, which would really soak in the ink, and
Oh,
so and plus like they couldn't reproduce subtle variations of colors and like gradations of colors. They couldn't really do it because the newsprint would soak the ink in so much that it would just kind of look
yes.
mushy.
Yeah, makes sense.
um, so yeah, shall we go to the next page?
Oh, yep. Sorry,
Yeah, no worries.
I'm all about the drink at the moment, and my mouth is dry as.
Yeah, no problem. So this is Girl Fight page.
Mmm.
It's
This is where
Jean
you see the
Grey versus Storm, and then Polaris gets in on the act and zaps Storm from behind and knocks her out. Well, not knocks her out, but kind of knocks her
knocks
to
it
the
down.
ground. She's under some debris. She says, "Oh, I can't pull free." They've got Storm on the ropes, but Storm also notices there's something different about these X-Men.
Yeah.
The way that when she talks to Jean, Jean acts like she doesn't know her, and
Yeah.
you
And they're
know,
like best
Aurora
friends.
is kind of like, well, wait, I thought we were becoming friends, and apparently not,
Mm.
because they're imposters.
They're imposters.
And then
They're
at
the
the
imposters.
exactly at the end of this page, there's a page turn moment. Marvel
Yep.
Girl and Polaris are getting attacked from behind, but who? So we flip the page, and it's Banshee attacking Jean and Polaris. It's kind of as we're going through these pages, like it's getting hard. Like I'm thinking, like, oh, is this the real Banshee, or is this the real? Like, who's real again?
Yeah,
But
who's
I
real
got
again?
to
Who's not?
remember, like, no, it's the old X-Men who are the imposters, and the new X-Men are the authentic deal. So interesting. This page is cool because
Mm.
Wolverine attacks Professor X. It's sort of questionable that Wolverine attacks a guy in a wheelchair. Like at first. He
Yeah,
just
true.
goes straight for him. He's like, "You're the one you're the one behind all this. Get the guy in the wheelchair." But then, a surprising moment: Professor X gets up from the wheelchair, and at this point in X-Men continuity, he hadn't done that before. Eventually, he kind of gets cured, and he can walk again, and then he gets paralyzed again. He can't walk again. He goes back and forth.
Goes backwards and forwards, yeah.
All through X-Men history. But at this point, as far as I know, he'd never gotten up out of his wheelchair. So this must have been like a bit of a shocking moment. Not only does he do that, but he punches Wolverine out.
Yeah, that's impressive.
I thought this was kind of interesting that even if he was the imposter, all the other imposters have been using the same powers that the X-Men characters have, but Professor X doesn't use mental powers at all.
No, he just punches him.
And there's no explanation for that. So I think it's just because it is like a cool kind of surprise moment of, he just gets up out of his wheelchair, which is cool. So yeah, punches Wolverine out. And then
the next page, he tries to punch him again.
Yeah. So now Marvel Girl is attacking Wolverine with a mental blast, and Wolverine realizes that he's not picking up on the usual scents, SCENTS, sense in the sense of odors and smells.
I like that.
And so that triggers him to have a realization of like, hang on, these aren't the real X-Men because they don't smell like the real X-Men. And so then he pops his claws and he attacks Jean Grey, and then the rest of the X-Men, the real team of X-Men, they're like, "Oh my God, what have you done?" And then there's another page turn moment.
Yeah, actually,
where even Stephen Lang is saying,
"Yeah,
I must see what's happening."
What's happening? What I want to say about this scene is, I'm pretty sure one of my favorite scenes in a modern X-Men comic back in the 90s, where instead of Jean Grey attacking him, it's actually Xavier attacking him on another planet. And he realizes through his senses that's not the real Xavier.
Oh, cool.
But he's organic. So he guts him, and it's...
Oh, wow.
And the other X-Men who's there, I can't remember who it is like, what the hell?
Oh, shoot.
You're not Xavier.
That's cool.
I wonder if this is like a nod to this. I'm curious.
It might be. I do know that, like, over the course of X-Men history, like, they do use that Wolverine kind of scent, and his heightened senses. They use that a lot. Yeah. For, Wolverine's the only one who can like tell that, this isn't real or whatever, because it doesn't smell right.
Doesn't smell right.
So then,
trusting your senses. I'm going to gut someone on the idea that they smell different.
Yes, yeah. Better make sure you're not wearing a new perfume that day. Here we go. This is a cool double-page spread, although there's a couple of things here where I was like, this isn't quite working for me. I mean, first of all, we've got the reveal that the imposter X-Men are all robots. Yeah. And the real Jean and the real Cyclops and the real Professor X and Dr. Stephen Corbeau, who was piloting the space shuttle, the Starcore space shuttle that they flew up to Stephen Lang's base that we talked about in the last episode. They're all in these pods held captive. The thing that sort of bothered me about this double page spread is that if you imagine where the staple would go, like the division between the two
Oh,
pages,
yeah.
it's right on the guy's face. Like it's right down the middle of the guy's body. And so
I never even thought of that.
it looks great here in a digital format because it's all just been turned into one image. But when you think about like turning the actual physical comic pages, there's a big chance that this isn't going to line up properly. So I just thought that was a strange choice of design. Like it looks great as an image by itself, but when it's printed, I don't know how good that's going to look.
Yeah,
One,
I'm curious if it was the middle page as well, if the staple was like visible.
it might have been like if it was the middle
It's the
page
right,
and
it's the
and
right
there's
page
no,
for it.
yeah, the middle page would have worked because then it is just like it's the middle spread and it is just one piece of paper.
Yeah,
But if not, it wouldn't have worked. So maybe they did calculate it.
I just
This is
love
like
the stapled
page
into his
10 and
head.
11, so it might have actually been the very middle of the book.
Might have been. It's hard to
So
tell without the ads. I want to
yeah,
know who down the bottom here, mutants that
yeah.
he's experimenting on. Who's this mutant in the green suit?
Oh, I think that is a mutant called the Vanisher,
Oh,
and I
I've heard of
think
that mutant, but I don't know. I don't
I
know them.
think he is an old character from the Stanley and Jack Kirby initial run of X-Men.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
if I'm remembering correctly, I think that was the Vanisher's original costume. It's a very strange costume. Um,
Well, if you can
like it
vanish.
almost looks like he's dressed as a snake or something. For
Yeah, I thought he had some sort of reptilian type powers.
yes, yes, it gives you that impression because he's got a green scaly kind of costume, so it does look
Mm.
reptilian. But no, I think his power is really just he can. I don't know whether it's like turning invisible or whether it's actually like um, teleporting,
Oh, okay.
like
Yep.
Nightcrawler. But he's called the Vanisher, I think, and I think that's him.
Oh, yeah.
And he is a mutant, so I think he may have been one of the Brotherhood of Evil mutants at one time.
Oh, yes.
Um, so obviously, like Stephen Lang is kind of just going after whatever mutants he can find to, experiment on. So yeah, this page explains Stephen Lang's like grand plan
Mm.
was kidnap mutants, analyze their powers, reproduce them in robots, and actually create a new version of Sentinels that looked more like human beings.
Yeah, I just love that
And
he calls
so,
them X-Sentinels.
yeah, the X Sentinels, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I thought the word balloons and the caption boxes on this page were very difficult. I found it really difficult to work out the order that I
Order.
was
Yes,
supposed to
same.
read them in. I mean, you kind of get the idea. You can kind of read them in one of a few ways, and it still all makes sense.
Mm.
But I usually prefer comic pages to have a very almost dropped my iPad.
Oh,
I usually prefer comic pages to have a very clear, and easily identifiable reading order of the word balloons and the panels. And this one, for me, it was kind of a mess.
no, I'm the same. I'm the same. I had to read it twice.
Yeah,
Once I
yeah,
realized what order it was meant to be, then I read it
right,
again in that order.
yeah. But yeah, interesting plan for Project Armageddon,
Yeah.
but ultimately a flawed plan because we'll see on the next page that he's about to.
Oh, it is this comic. Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I've
so
got a
this is
bad
what
memory.
this is what you were talking about before,
Yeah,
right?
I got the worst memory.
Cyclops using his eye blast, but Stephen Lang says the negatube behind me, it's glowing white hot,
Yes.
which that
No
suggests
wonder there's this argument about what his
yes,
powers are.
exactly, exactly. Now I wanted to know if Cyclops could do this. and just bust out of these tubes. Why did he wait until this point to do it?
Yeah, no, that's what I was
Why?
thinking as well when I read this.
Suddenly, it's like, yeah, now's the time. Now's the moment. Yeah, it's weird. They were just biding their time in there. So, yeah, they never explain why Cyclops waited until now, but busts himself out, and then he busts Professor X and Dr. Corbeau and Jean out of their tubes. And then he's just going to town, going after Stephen Lang, and destroying the lab in the process.
He's really out to get him too.
He is. No mercy.
Yeah. He's got a real hatred of him all of a sudden.
Yeah, Cyclops he's got a lot of internalized anger, which I think we've talked about before.
Yes,
I think we talked about it on the last show that, Professor X is this flawed father figure for Scott.
That's right, yeah.
Who's always sending him mixed signals and sort of telling him like he can't do anything right. And so you kind of doing this show has actually given me more sympathy for Cyclops, because reading the issues, you really do. I've gotten a new kind of appreciation and a new kind of window into what the actual relationship dynamic is between Professor X and Cyclops. Like, it's very dysfunctional. It's really codependent and very dysfunctional.
Extremely codependent that he left the woman that he loved to stay in the X-Men.
Right.
What the?
Yes. It's lucky she came back.
Lucky she came back.
I love the drawing of Stephen Lang in panel, what is that, 4, 5, 6, 7. Second last panel on the page. Yep. That's a great face. Yep. I love that. It's just really nice inking. What's that?
Cyclops went to town on him in the last issue.
He did. He looks like he's had the crap beaten out of him.
You don't see that in comics very often, that when they've been beaten up, that there's actually injuries later. There's like a bruise, maybe they'll draw like the hashes to show a bruise or something.
Yeah.
But he's lost a tooth.
Yeah. Yep.
One eye won't open.
Yeah, half his face is swollen. Yeah. Looks bad. Things are about to get a lot worse for Stephen Lang as well, because he jumps in this little mini flying gunship. Yeah. And then on the next page, all hell breaks loose. So he takes off, and then he's shooting at Cyclops while Banshee and Storm are destroying the imposter X-Men robots. Cyclops zaps they are like they're literally tearing everything apart. Cyclops zaps the gunship, and then Jean takes over the controls, and she actually steers the gunship into the giant video screen. And
that's not the impression I got.
Oh,
just to put it out there.
Yeah, go ahead.
He says something about, I'm going to break free by putting my foot down on the accelerator type of thing. Like, what's the actual full power to the thrusters? And it's like, oh, what are you doing? Straight into the thing. So
right.
I think she was trying to turn him around, but then he whacked his foot on the old accelerator or whatever it is.
So he did it himself.
He did it himself, so you can't blame Jean.
Got it.
Very convenient.
You've saved Jean from my eternal condemnation. Because I was thinking, like, she's a murderer. She just killed that guy in cold blood.
I love the effect for her again. I'm really digging what they do here, and I really hate that they didn't keep this in modern comics.
Yeah, because it's really cool. And they do seem to sort of dispense with it very quickly after this. So, yeah, Stephen Lang knows that he's a goner.
Yep.
Because we go to the
he
next
even says,
page.
Help me, X-Men.
Yeah. Yes, X-Men, help me.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going to kill you all, but help me.
Right. No help for
It's a hell of an
him,
explosion. I
unfortunately.
don't know what that screen was made of.
Yeah, so he crashes into the screen, explodes, so he's dead. And then the other X-Men come in, so they're all reunited. But the base is now like, it's going to blow up. Banshee says this place is going to blow itself to bits any minute now. So their plan is they got to get back to the space shuttle that they flew there in. Unfortunately, the space shuttle itself is damaged. It's got a big hole in its hull. So, yeah, they're not gonna. As Stephen Corbeau, the pilot guy who flew there, said on the way, like if we damage this, we're not going to be able to get back. So, but they don't have any choice here. So yeah, at the bottom of this page, Corbeau describes the situation and says the flight control computer is damaged, so they can't rely on the computer to fly them back. There's a hole in the hull, and they don't have any pressure suits to safeguard them from the depressurization.
Yeah.
Or give them oxygen or whatever. But there's also a massive solar flare heading their way as well. So this part really felt to me like a movie, like the like, oh, what are they going to do? Like all the adverse kind of conditions are piling one upon each other. So there's like all these challenges before them that they've got to try and overcome. And then Jean steps forward and says, I can do it. Yeah, on the next page.
She knocks old Cyclops out.
Yes. Yes.
You can't stop me.
So this part was cool because she's like, I can do it. And then Cyclops is like, what are you talking about? How are you going to do it? And then she explains, I'm going to take the skills, like I'm going to basically teach myself how to fly the space shuttle by absorbing Dr. Corbeau's knowledge. And then I'm going to use my telekinetic powers to shield us all from the solar radiation and the decompression. So she's taking on, like, she's quite heroic in this. Moment. Like, she's taking on all the responsibility for saving herself and the whole team, but they're saying, like, you'll never be able to do it. That's certain death. And she's, it's kind of a cool sequence here because I like the pacing of this. They do the fact that they take a moment, that Claremont kind of gave a moment for the characters to sort of have a discussion about, like, here's the risks and here's why we don't want you to do it. And then Jean pushes back and she's like, look, no one else can do it. I have to be the one. And the fact that we see that the characters themselves care about this situation makes us care about the situation.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite well done. And yeah, as you said, Jean knocks Scott out to shut him up, using one of her mind blasts. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Exactly. With me.
So yeah, it's cool. It's good character stuff in this section, I thought. On the next page we've got, like, Jean faces off against Wolverine, and says, I've been putting up with you since you and your bad attitude since you got on this team, and for once, just shut up. Just go sit down.
I love that.
Up. Let me do my job, which was cool. And then Aurora and Jean share like a tender moment.
Yeah, I
Which
like
is really
that. That was
nice.
pretty cool.
Yeah, it's all really nice, and this is the kind of thing that I think separated the X-Men comics from other comics of the time, in that it's a real kind of heartfelt group, and it feels like a family.
That's true.
In how much they care about each other, which I don't think you really see in the Avengers or other team books. Like, they didn't get to this kind of level of emotion. So kudos to Chris Claremont for kind of putting it in the comic, I think.
Yeah, she's
and
doing
then,
funny again, and she uses her powers. I freaking love that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're doing that same effect. Yeah, that looks cool.
I think
and
she's
so then
something up against the hole.
Yes, I think, she says sealing the hole telekinetically with this piece of wreckage. So yeah, she's
if you read
put
the
up
word,
a piece of wreckage against the hole in the hull, and she's going to be holding that there with her mind, with her telekinetic powers the whole time as she's flying the thing back. So even for like someone with a superpower, that seems like a lot.
It does, doesn't it?
So then she reverses the space shuttle out of the space. What do they call it? The orbiting platform. Shield orbiting platform. And heads to Earth. And then we go to the final page of this issue, where Cyclops has woken up again, and he's being held back by Nightcrawler and Colossus, because he doesn't want Jean to sacrifice herself for the rest of the team, but they hold him back. And then
pretty much go, if you go out there, you kill us all.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, what are you doing? Just come on. And then the solar flare, which I think is what we're seeing in the first panel. I think maybe that big flame.
Yeah, that's the solar flare,
That's supposed to be the solar flare. And so then for the rest of the page, we have Jean's thoughts. And she's basically, talking about how difficult it is to do what she's trying to do. And then that last panel looks like she's basically burning up.
It does, doesn't it? It looks like
because of the radiation. Yeah. So what a cliffhanger. What a great issue this was.
This was awesome.
Yeah.
100.
Really? Woo! Yes.
They did it. They made it an awesome episode. Or not episode, issue. It's so dramatic. I'm thinking that it's a TV show.
Right.
Oh, dear.
Well, a lot of it does feel like the level of drama is something that you do get from movies and TV shows, and you don't always get this emotionally invested in a comic book. And so I think that's one of the reasons why Chris Claremont's X-Men run became so highly regarded, is because readers, got so emotionally invested in these stories and these characters, which is, that's exactly. It's definitely something, something to be said for just words and pictures on paper, being able to, involve the readers so much. So yeah, it's great issue.
Yep.
Well, awesome. That's the end of that one.
Yeah, so that brings us to the part, Matt, where we go, what is your band name this week?
I think this week's band name is going to be named after the device that Stephen Lang had the X-Men trapped in, the Negatubes.
The Negatubes. I didn't notice that name. That's awesome.
Yeah, he just does it in one panel. He calls them the Negatubes behind me are glowing white hot.
Oh,
so I was like, there you go, that's the band name.
I just
mega
went glowing
tubes.
white and went, "What do you mean hot? What do you mean? What?
Yeah.
What?"
Yep. So that's the band name for this issue.
That's awesome.
Mega tubes. And next episode, we'll be talking about a very historic and momentous issue in X-Men history.
Yes.
And
With
I'm
a
not
very,
spoiling anything.
iconic cover. Very iconic
Absolutely.
cover. It's been reproduced so many times over, it's not funny.
So many times. I'm not spoiling anything because it's right on the cover. It's the birth of Phoenix.
Yes. Yes. And I'll talk about that more next week. But right now, that's it for this week. Thanks for watching, everyone. If you have anything that you want to say about what we've talked about today, stick it in the comments, whether it's good or bad. Let us know. If we were wrong about something, let us know. If you agree with something we said, let us know. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel so you can see more Uncanny Conversations.
Yes.
So see you next time for issue 101.
Yeah.
And until then, I'm Siz. You can find me online at comex.net.au. And Matt, where can people find your stuff?
Find my stuff at steamrollerman.com.
Awesome. Well, goodbye and see you next week.
Yep. See you next week, Siz.
See ya.
I'll talk to you then.
Awesome.